had my first job in college. I was a big crammer, so I'd study the night before, wake up, test is usually around 11, get there right before the test starts and hopefully pass. But I got my first job. I had a project that took me a long time to complete. I was cramming the night before, trying to get it done. I was traveling for work at this time, so I was in a hotel putting together a spreadsheet I knew almost nothing about. Finally got it done at like 3 a.m. Woke up to my alarm going off, my hotel phone calling me, my boss texting me and emailing me. I slept in 3 hours and totally missed the meeting. So cramming could work in college, doesn't necessarily mean that it works well once you get an actual job.
What not to do first job, I was at an Irish pub, actually working as a high schooler as a food runner and a busser, and I was a little overconfident in my ability to actually run some of the food because at this Irish pub, as much as their time, you'll be able to deliver a lot of the food to the tables, 6 to 7 plates at a time. I thought I can absolutely do that, but I was around 5'1" and a little bit pint-sized at the time, so the restaurant had a spiraling staircase to where we actually would deliver the food, and pretty long, steep way down. And by the end of my first shift, I could not lift my arms, and I had tomato soup just all over my shirt. So made it work, but a little overconfident.
First job out of college, I worked at a third-party recruiting agency, LaSalle Network, and 3 weeks into the job, we were doing a large national search for a Fortune 500 CPG company, and we're doing interviews for candidates, and clients weren't ready to move forward with specific candidates, so my plan of action was to call candidates and tell them that I was keeping them warm. Definitely a big no-no to do as a recruiter.
So this is actually a story about someone that I referred to a role when I was an intern at one of my first jobs. So the person that I referred for the same program ended up kind of messing up after the interview process, did pretty well during the interview process, but started reaching out to a lot of folks at the company, some folks that I didn't even know, didn't even work with. This is all while I was an intern and trying to just kind of get updates on the interview, on his interview status from a bunch of people who didn't even know, that who he was or who I was or what the internship was about. So definitely don't do that. Try and go through your HR recruiter or whoever the hiring manager for the role is. They're the ones who are going to have the best updates for you.
So during my first internship, I was commuting into New York City from the New Jersey suburbs, and I am not a morning person, so taking that early train to get into the city was pretty tiring every day. So towards the end of my internship, and as time was going on and just getting more tired, I was in a meeting with my boss and one of our clients and just happened to doze off during the meeting. When I lifted my head back up, I probably made a bit of a noise, and everyone in the meeting was looking at me. So at the end of the meeting, my boss pulled me aside and said I either needed to start drinking coffee or figure out a way to stay awake during the meetings that we were having with our clients. I did not get asked back after the internship summer for a full-time role, but it ended up being okay because it wasn't necessarily a job I was interested in anyway.
I would say show up your first day of work, if you're a man, with the amount of facial hair you want to have for the rest of the time you're there. Because if they let you have that amount the first day, you should be good to go for the rest of your time. If you show up with shaved face, you might not be able to rock a beard later on.
It happened a lot more in the past, but when information system security was much lower and permissions were much more liberal, it was very common for people in their first days on the job to drop the whole production database, lose all of a client's data, something like that, have to restore from a day or two prior, and that was me. So we dropped a client's database a few weeks in, and we had to recover and deliver that news that they had lost that day's data.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I had an intern at a company that was learning how to do some coding, some basic coding level stuff. I had asked her to write some code in Notepad+, which is just a place where you could stick some code without having it mess up or transfer over poorly. So I asked, I'll take a look at your Notepad+, after you're ready to submit it. She went out to the store and bought a notepad and a pencil. She wrote it on an actual piece of paper. It was an awkward conversation, but it was a good learning experience for her.
On my first job, I was walking into a meeting with my coworker who was kind of introducing me around the building. And as we walked in, the other people in the meeting looked at her and said, "Oh, I didn't know it was Bring Your Son to Work Day." And so that was a mistake I made in my first job. As far as advice I have for people, fake mustaches maybe, I don't really know.